Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. We're live on YouTube. We're going to bring in our Facebook group. That's Atlanta Falcons fans on all Falcons. So we get the whole family in here. We've got lots of people in here already from YouTube. They're ready to get going, but we want the whole family in here. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Monday morning version of the Falcons Podcast. We are live on YouTube at youtube.com/Scott Kennedy and Atlanta Falcons fans on all Falcons on Facebook. We go live every Monday and Wednesday and Friday because we like having interaction with the fans. And then you can listen after the fact. You want to leave a comment. If you watch on one of those channels, you leave a comment. We'll check back in with you for sure. Falcons are coming off a bye week. They've got the Saints coming up. They've lost 3 in a row. They probably needed a bye week as much as anybody, except for this guy over here, Nick Kendall. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty good weekend of football. Busy. Just hunting for a car still. That one that I wanted, Scott, somebody got in before me, so go figure. And enjoying football, too. We had a baby class yesterday right before the game. Hawkeyes clinched the Big Ten West, and Denver wins their 4th in a row. So overall, very busy week. I'm exhausted for a Monday, but excited to be here and talk some ball.
Yeah, I'm ready for, when we cover the Broncos, I'm ready for them not to be finished at 12:30 at night. But, my kid, I got to sleep in just a little bit with with Thanksgiving week. We never got the full week off for Thanksgiving when I was a kid. We got out at Wednesday at like 2.
Yeah.
So they're pretty spoiled out there. So we're going to get into it. The big news over the weekend, Ian Rappaport had that, according to his sources, Desmond Ridder will be the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. That is a shock to no one. Forget the fact that Heineke had gotten banged up and was he was ineffective in his last start versus Arizona Cardinals. Minnesota Vikings. Which game was it? Arizona Cardinals was their last game.
Kyler Murray, crazy.
All of these losses are starting to run together. 55 yards passing on 15 attempts. When Arthur Smith was asked about what are you looking for when you're trying to make a decision, he talked for about 150 straight seconds about Desmond Ridder and all of the great things he's doing. So I'm like, well, this is done. I even titled it. If you're on either one of these two channels, hopefully you saw the alert on there, but I put the video, that clip up there that says, writing's on the wall, Desmond Ridder is the starter of this football team. Sure enough, here it comes. Now, we will see. But, Nick, I want to say hello to some folks that have come in nice and early to help support the show. And Ryan comes in. He says, don't look now, but if Falcons win, the Falcons are in first place. Yeah, they're only one back in the loss column in both of those games, if I'm not mistaken. Or did that change with the when I wrote that, when I said that last time, I'm not sure I had factored in the Tampa Bay game from they were still playing.
Yeah, Falcons are 4-6, along with Tampa Bay, with the Saints being 5-5 and the Panthers at 1-9.
That's right. I wrote that yesterday morning. Like I said, it's all running together that they're only one game back in the loss column. I wrote that yesterday morning. Yeah, again, Ryan, it goes back to the question I have is, you can go 4-0 against the Saints, the Bucks, the Panthers. And actually, if you do, that means you would have swept the NFC South. And 6 of your, and then go 8-9 and make the playoffs. Is that good enough for you, or are you still saying I want change? I'm not happy enough with 8-9. This team should have been much better considering the money spent, the talent, the draft picks, 3rd year, all of those things. I still want change. That's my big question for the Atlanta Falcons fans. But I guess the second part of that, Nick, would be and a first round out, because you win. Go on a run in the playoffs and do something silly like, hey, we knock off the Lions, and then we get the 49ers, who are kind of helter-skelter sometimes, and we knock off the 49ers, all of a sudden we're in the NFC Championship game. Well, then you got to make you've got to make some decisions. But that seems really far-fetched right now for a team that is 4-6 against the easiest record in the NFL, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, if you make the division, you should absolutely have the conversation, because it's, even if the division hasn't been great, it's still a team accomplishment, and team's been dealing with a good bit this season and inadequacies at the quarterback position. It's going to take more than what the record is at the end. We need to see what it looks like. We need to see how players are playing. We need to see how they are reacting to Arthur Smith as well. Not every 9-8, 8-9 team is the same. Some absolutely hate each other and would celebrate the coach being out. Some would be devastated that would happen, which I think for Arthur Smith, given what we saw during the Dan Quinn era, probably is a factor. So something that we at least want to try to keep a pulse on as well. But down the stretch, they got a chance here. If they make the playoffs, Scott, unless they're absolutely destroyed in that first round, it'd be hard for me to move on from Arthur Smith. But crazier things have happened. So we'll see. And this is all hypothetical. You got to keep winning games.
Again, the crazier thing is to break the 3-game losing streak and decide you want to start playing some football on offense. That's got to happen first. Again, this doesn't seem overly difficult because we know what the Falcons are capable of on both sides. They're capable of getting beat by literally anyone. They're capable of beating everyone that's left on their schedule. It's frustrating. It is. It's frustrating. And Victor says, good morning. He says, what does Ritter need to do to keep their respective jobs when the NFC South is enough, or how the performance doesn't matter the most? Yeah, Victor, you were right in our heads on this one. We started just talking about this one. I don't think 8-9 might be enough for Arthur Blank, unfortunately. I don't think 8-9 will be enough for the Falcons fans. Hey, we made the playoffs. Yay. It'd be nice. The Falcons haven't made the playoffs since 2017. But to make it eke in with a losing record and to, have a losing record against this schedule with this team would be underachieving to a pretty large extent. I don't think it's hyperbole, Nick, to say that this team with a competent passing game, and I encompass all of that together. I don't just blame Arthur Smith. I don't just blame the quarterback. The quarterback play isn't good enough. That falls on the quarterback and the coach. Now, it could be one more than the other. I'm not sure which one it is at this point. Arthur Smith has had more success with quarterbacks than he's having with these two quarterbacks. But for me, that's the 8-9 eking into the playoffs isn't good enough for this team. This team should literally be, what are they, 10 games right now, 4-6? They could be 8-2 with even a just below average offense/turnover margin.
Yeah, I think the Falcons have the highest EPA loss on turnovers in the NFL this season. Now, a lot of that comes from not a lot, but a lot probably comes from that Buccaneer game where they I think it was 17 points lost in EPA, which is just unheard of. So that's something that will be interesting to follow. Just got to protect the ball and be a little bit more efficient. Doesn't have to be overly explosive right now. I think the run starting to get Bijan more involved, I think, is a benefit as well. But yeah, Desmond Ridder has been struggling. I tend to think it's more quarterback than it is the actual coach, but coach went to bat hardcore for the quarterback. And when you do that, you are tied to that. So if the quarterback isn't getting it done, well, the results business. And a lot of coaches get hired and fired because the quarterback's not good enough. So it's at the end of the day, you got to figure it out.
Well, and especially when your coach is also co-GM, that's the part I've said a lot is Arthur Smith does not get a pass on this. He does not get a pass if your quarterback isn't good enough. I gave Dan Quinn a pass for his defense not being good enough. Mike Smith for they're not having a great defense because Thomas Dimitroff put zero resources into the defense. It was all into the offense. It was so heavily skewed. A completely unbalanced team, but Arthur Smith's fingerprints are all over this team. Falcons 2230 saying, good morning, guys. And he says, it would be nice to see Ritter solid the rest of the year so we can use the number one pick on other needs.
It's a little, we can start talking about that, but as far as the quarterback goes, odds of getting one of the top two guys, I think, are still pretty thin. I know people are micro picking to death, Caleb Williams and Drake May, but these guys aren't on, Trevor Lawrence with Clemson or Justin Fields with Ohio State. These are deeply flawed teams that both these quarterbacks are manning right now. So it's a little bit more like, got it, like RG3 with Baylor, like they're putting up some good offense stuff, but the defense, not a superpower, well-rounded team. So yeah, number one pick on other needs would be good to see if Ritter performs well, but I think it would take a pretty miraculous stretch here down the stretch to be all in on Ritter again next season. So gonna be fascinating to watch. I'm glad he's getting another shot because I think he's a better option than Heineke because you need to figure out what you have there. But I think we've seen enough now that you're probably hunting in the offseason regardless. At least, maybe not super aggressive depending on how he plays, but you're definitely looking.
Yeah, again, Ritter was playing pretty well aside from the turnovers. Oh, hey, it was a really nice trip except for that iceberg. The turnovers are such a big thing. And we
How was
said
the
this,
play?
and Ryan, you may have been one of the guys, or, there were several that says, why are you allowing the expectations to be so low for Desmond Ridder? When we were just saying, listen, all he needs to do is be an average quarterback and protect the ball, and this team is a playoff team. Because all he needed to do was be an average quarterback and protect the ball, and this team is a playoff team. He hasn't done that this year. He doesn't have to do too much. It's not that I'm setting the bar that low. That's where I'm setting the floor. It start there. This is just, don't be any worse than this, and you're okay. Set the floor at okay game, ball protecting game manager. It's a playoff team without a doubt in this division with this schedule. Again, 8-2 isn't out of the question with this team. You're just not giving the ball away. And I don't know. I mean, there's coaching in there too. So like I said, I'm not putting it all on Ritter, because Arthur Smith takes his share of the blame too. So when you hear me, when I start talking about Ritter, I'm including the entire passing game, because it's not just Ritter. Heineke wasn't worth a damn either. Throwing the ball. So the passing game, which the passing game includes everything that's involved in the passing game. And I'm not absolving the receivers in there either. What did the stat? Why don't you tell everybody a stat that you showed me? When I get out there in crunch time and I see Van Jefferson, what stat did you see? I know you're a big efficiency guy. What stat did you tell me about Van Jefferson on the Atlanta Falcons?
I think it was the EPA per target, that he is dead last in the entire NFL, and that he's also one of the worst yak in the entire NFL. And I think the sample size was out of maybe 120 wide receivers. So yeah, he has been very poor. And for a team that, I know they want to be a 12, 21 condensed formations team, but even teams that don't play a lot of 11, you're still playing 40 to 50% of your snaps out of 11, and that's not including rotations with your wide receivers as well. So yeah, Van Jefferson, luckily it was just a pick swap, but looks to be a null addition to the offense.
Yeah, Mac Hollins seemed like he would add more. Scotty Miller seems like he's added more. Frank Darby may have added more, for God's sakes. There was a lot of players. Zay Malone, I think, was a guy who looked really good. It's not that you didn't. The cost isn't what it costs to get him. The cost is what it's costing you to have him on the field. Remember, the saying I've used a zillion times is, it's not the players that you miss that kill you. It's the players you get that can't play that kill you. And right now he's being shoehorned into this offense, and he's been completely ineffective. Now, again, the entire passing game isn't on him, but these are pieces of it. Like I said, I don't want to start going on Ritter. What about Arthur Smith? And I don't want to go on Arthur Smith. What about quarterback? No, it's all of it, which at the end of the day, for me, falls on Arthur Smith, because he is general manager / coach of this team, and his fingerprints are all over it. So that's where it's going to end. And it's not going to just be, well, Arthur Smith can't coach or call plays. Maybe. But, well, on the other side of that, he hasn't had his quarterback. Well, that's his fault too. So that's where I come on it's Arthur Smith thing. It's one or the other. Either he can't coach or he can't pick players. But either one of those are fireable offenses, Nick.
Yeah, it's, again, not totally fair, but we kind of saw it with Mark Rule in Carolina, where, he's been a good college coach a lot of places, but in the NFL, it's different. If you don't have that quarterback, good freaking luck. Not to be too dramatic about it, but Bill Belichick without Brady has been pretty poor. Now, the game has changed a lot. Who knows? There's a lot of factors to that, but obviously I'd still take Bill Belichick. But, you can have a great coach if your quarterback is detrimental. It's going to be hard to win in the NFL.
And for me, it's not about Belichick, the coach. It's Belichick, the general manager.
Yeah.
Again, I firmly believe that. There's been enough sample size for 30 years, maybe even longer, that it's probably 30 years that this really started happening with the coaches becoming the general managers. Mike Holmgren was one of the first guys I saw. I think he left the Packers and got a sweetheart deal with the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Reeves started doing it. Bill Parcells started doing it. And all the guys that had success, all of a sudden, when they want to start being general manager too, their team starts going down. Now, Belichick had a lot of success doing it with Tom Brady. He could cover up some of your personnel decisions. John Harrell says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and the Falcons family. Happy Thanksgiving week to you as well. Carrie says, good morning, Carrie. How you doing? She says, good morning, Scott and Nick. This Sunday feels like a must-win to win this division. Really hope the Falcons figured things out during the bye. It came at the perfect time. It did. They needed this. They needed to get a reset. There was, 3 games in a row where you're looking at them, and I know the Vikings, the Cardinals are played better than the record. They showed that against the Texans. They showed that against the Falcons. The Vikings coming in, man, I don't care. You got a guy making his very first start who wasn't supposed to be on the field at all, getting replaced by a guy who just got off the bus, who has 4 starts in his career coming into this season. You can't beat that team at home when they're missing they're not only their quarterback who just got off the bus, their second quarterback who just got hurt, who was a rookie who'd never played, and the best wide receiver in the NFL. And you still can't beat that team at home. My God.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of must-win games here to show me who you are. Right now, I'm afraid, Nick, the Falcons have shown us who they are this year. That's what I fear for Falcons fans, is it's not going to get any better under this regime.
And it's certainly possible. The thing that's been really letting me down with this Falcons team has been the run design, right? Like this season, this was supposed to be a team that was dominating in the rushing aspects of it. And again, it's much better to be a pass team. You get more explosives. The efficiency is way higher. But if you can lean on that run game, especially the quarterback getting his first real, meaningful time, that'd be great. You invested in Bijan Robinson, a lot of money spent on that offensive line as well. And you're sitting there with the 21st highest ranked efficient offense, rushing EPA out there. That's not good enough for a team that is supposed to be your bread and butter. You also have the success rate is down in the 20s as well. I mean, it's just, this is supposed to be Arthur Smith's calling card, right? And when your offense, your rushing game is not that efficient, not explosive enough, it makes it really hard in the pass game. And you see all these warts in the drop back pass game, the quick game. I think Desmond Ridder has been one of the 3 worst quarterbacks in the NFL in 3-step drop this season in his EPA. Just the quick game stuff has not been good from him. You can get away with that if your run game supplants it, but we haven't seen that from this Falcons team this year, which is really surprising given the talent and the overall investment and what we saw from Arthur Smith in the past from this rushing offense.
Must win. This game is for first place. Ryan asks, and Carrie answers, yes, must win. I agree. You can't fall to 4-7 and 2 games out of first place with 6 to play at home again.
Yeah.
No, they don't. They lose to the Saints this weekend. They're done in the division. Again, mathematically it's all, and look at who they're playing, but man, they haven't done it. Again, the easiest schedule in the NFL and the easiest. But look how easy the schedule is going forward. Look how easy it is backwards. And they're 4-6. Man. Dave says, I'm sick of the Saints Falcons nonsense. Guys, some rivalries are overrated. Dave. I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one if you think the Saints Falcons nonsense rivalry is overrated. The problem is we're talking about 2 of the most historically bad franchises in the NFL, so no one paid attention. But down here in the Deep South, there were only 2 teams forever, until the Panthers came around in the late 90s or early 90s, I think that was. It was just the Saints and the Falcons down here. The next closest team was probably the Cincinnati Bengals, 8 hours away, Tampa, down south, but, they weren't in the division for a long time. The Saints and Falcons were. Coming down 85, I went to Auburn, and after Sundays, after Falcons games, I'd go back with all the Hoodats. They flood the upper deck, and frankly, the nastiest clashes are not at the top. Socioeconomic, however you want to look at it. You look at where the nastiest, most violent rivalries are. It's not at the top. It's to see who's going to stay off the bottom. It's not the guys. It's not the hedge fund guys on Wall Street. It's the dudes scraping to get by to not be the very last person in society. Those are the ones that are the most violent. this is a terrific rivalry that has been underappreciated by the NFL because the games didn't really matter to anybody else but the Saints and the Falcons. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one, dude.
Yeah, it does seem like a legitimate hatred there, but in the confines of
it's a great
sports.
rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the ridiculousness of Auburn, Alabama. It's not that. It's a great professional rivalry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Keith McCann's good to see you, Keith. He says, I hope Arthur Smith relinquishes play calling duties to someone else. Just don't see that's going to happen. I don't know that Dave Ragone has ever called plays. I don't think anybody on the staff has ever called plays. Who's he going to give them to? You're looking at the resumes out there. Who would you give them to? Would you give them to Dave Ragone? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make a fire and make a change, I think, by bringing a hotshot quarterback coach and make him offensive coordinator. Oh, that's just one step away from being gone. You can usually clear your coordinators one time as a head coach. I'm not sure if Arthur Smith will get that benefit this year, Nick.
Yeah, it's odd. A lot of times when things start to sink a tad, you see guys, try to take in more power here. Oh, I need to take on more tasks here because I don't have enough control. And if I took more control of the situation, we'd be better off. Oftentimes a sign of a sinking ship there. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but I cannot see Arthur Smith giving up play calling duties right now, given where the team is at, coming off a bye week as well. If it was going to happen, it would have already happened. So going down with the ship if it doesn't make it to port here.
And Rusty says, I don't want to make the playoffs if only the reason we did is because our division is trash. As far as I'm concerned, if we're the division of 8 and 9, it's an L. Then we get embarrassed in the wild card by Dallas. And, and Ryan is on the other side of that. He says if the Falcons win the division, it's good enough for me. And the argument going on here is like, the Eagles and Cowboys isn't nearly as intense as Saints Falcons. Well, the Cowboys has a rivalry with anybody. They're America's team. Again, in the 80s, the biggest rivalries weren't the Eagles. The Eagles weren't that good after they went to the Super Bowl in like 1980. It was the Washington Redskins and it was the New York Giants. Those were the big rivals for the Cowboys. And then if they play the Steelers or the Raiders, hell, the Cowboys Steelers was a bigger rivalry because they were meeting in Super Bowls. Then it became Cowboys 49ers. So that one's diluted. Again, ask any Falcon, who's your biggest rival? Saints. Done. Cowboys it might be America's team, but it's also America against the Cowboys on this one. Jay comes in, he says, good morning, y'all. Ritter was getting better and we yanked him. Now he gets his job back. Makes no sense, though. That's our Atlanta Falcons. Rise up. Good to see you, Jay. Hope you're doing well. And I know for you, Nick, this one hits close to home. Jay's comment about the yo-yoing and the timing of Desmond Ridder getting bounced from the lineup is something that you've taken issue with before.
It just felt like things were coming together and the turnovers that were happening were at least something that was correctable. I thought the process looked okay there, and this is what you signed up for this season. It's not like you had a young gun waiting in the wings that it's like, okay, this isn't happening. Let's flip to that. It's Taylor Heineke. We've seen Taylor Heineke over a large enough sample size to know that probably not it. Now, maybe Desmond Ridder's injury was more substantial, but this felt like, okay, Ritter's been struggling. Let's see if we have anything else with Heineke. Oh, no, Heineke's even worse. Let's go back to Ritter. Are we 2 weeks away from going back to Heineke again? I mean, it just felt, now you're messing with the confidence of Ritter, who's been playing a little bit shaky in terms of, trusting his reads and firing it in there. Now, even more so, probably. Am I going to get benched again? Thinking through things rather than, anticipating it. So I think that it was a poor process by Arthur Smith, and the fact that you're going back to Desmond Ridder so quickly, based on what we know. Now, granted, it could have been more injury related than what we have. I think that's an important caveat. We're not inside the building, so we don't have every single factor. But what it seems like from the outside is that you are yo-yoing, you're messing with the confidence of this young guy. Now you see, oh my gosh, well, I guess Heineke isn't the guy either. We better just go back to the original and hope it works out.
Again, you're 10 games in. This is week 12 now,
and
you don't know what the hell you want to do at quarterback.
Yep.
This isn't the New York Jets. They don't know what they want to do at quarterback because their personnel is awful. They missed horribly on a number 2 overall pick. That happens. But they had a plan to go out and get a quarterback that was available. And anybody out there and it's not this crew, trust me. It's anybody in here knows what I'm about to say. Anybody that happens to listen or say the question later about Lamar Jackson was not available. Don't talk about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was not available to the Atlanta Falcons. I think I saw, in you read the comments on stuff. It's like, oh, and this was a team that didn't think they needed Lamar Jackson. No, Lamar Jackson wasn't available. Flat out, full stop, over and over. Daniel Mitchell, good to see you, Daniel. Says, again, does it really matter? Are we contenders? Absolutely not. Can we carry this momentum into the next season? Absolutely not. We need a quarterback. Do we have the players to overcome play calling? No, we don't. Let's be real for a change and clean house. Now, when you say clean house, for me, clean house, you're going to have some personnel changes on defense because you got a lot of one-year contracts. Clean house for me, I think the offense is in decent shape aside from quarterback, and you may mean above, in the front office on the sidelines, Daniel, and because I think the players are, again, this team, the players are going to have to be 8-2. But without a quarterback, it's not going to happen, no matter who comes in. And the second part of that is you got to get a pass rush, for God's sakes. You've got to be able to rush the passer. Mm-hmm. We can talk quarterback all you want, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down, hey, we scored 30 points. We still can't stop anybody. Oh, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones era. Yeah, great. Can't stop anybody we need to. We came from behind, yeah, but we can't get the ball back because they're just running it right down our throats to kill the clock with a lead. So you've got to get a pass rush. We've said what is going to be the Achilles heel of this team. Playing better quarterbacks will pick you apart if you can't get pressure on the quarterback. And right now, you cannot get pressure on the quarterback unless you fool somebody with a 5-man rush, because just a 5-man rush isn't getting it done either. Those guys are getting it blocked.
Yeah, especially without Grady Jarrett, you don't have a gravity player on that front. Somebody you watch where if, aliens descended on Earth and they watch a football game, okay, point out the good player. It'd be obvious to them. Grady Jarrett's probably the only guy of that unit who has that caliber. So it's definitely something you are hunting for this offseason as well. I don't think there is a true number one edge in this class this year. I don't know if there's a true number one defensive player in this entire class this year, but it's something you might take a swing on in the upcoming draft. It's damn near impossible to pay one of those guys. Teams just don't let pass rushers of that caliber in their prime walk. So, and I don't know if you're at the point also to pay, a guy his final contract, third contract, huge deal as well, because it seems like a team that could be once again in transition and trying to find themselves.
Yeah, there's going to be some pretty good defensive linemen on free agents that are free agents, but I think quarterback is going to have to be your number one option coming into the offseason. Brandon Swank has a question here that was one of probably the most engaged thing I've had on Twix in a long time, because Twix kind of sucks. It says ESPN, both guys, Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano, were asked, where does Kirk Cousins play next year? And they both said Atlanta Falcons. I've asked around, and this is starting to make the most sense. There was a very binary, which shouldn't surprise me, reaction to this, where most people were like, no way, no how, forget it, no way, absolutely not. I will root for another team. I think that's over the top. I can make a pretty good argument why Kirk Cousins on this team. The problem is, if Kirk Cousins is here, you probably have Arthur Smith, because you're not rebuilding with a new coach. You're trying to win it once, and then that question becomes, well, it doesn't matter if you get Kirk Cousins because Arthur Smith is here. But as a quarterback for this team's 8-2, 7-3 with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, period. Flat out. It's not that bad a deal. He's coming off an injury. Okay, I'll listen to that one. Too expensive. Maybe not. We don't know what he's going to cost on this next contract, and the Falcons have money. So how do I feel about Kirk Cousins on the Falcons as a free agent in 2024? I'd be interested. I'd be interested. I'd want to see where the Falcons are drafting and who might be available when they are drafting, because I think Kirk Cousins is going to be the best quarterback available for 2024 in the draft or free agency.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the trade market, of course, as well. There might be some movement there. Justin Fields just had an incredible game. The Bears defense kind of let up at the end, but that was on the road at Detroit. I mean, that's a hard game, and the Bears had him down to the wire. As far as Kirk Cousins go, I don't know. I want to say I was the first person that I heard make the connection to the Falcons. I think I brought it up back in September. even saying that's it. He's playing really good ball, and you just need a distributor who's smart out there, and he could do some things for you. The one thing I have here with Kirk Cousins that maybe would have me put a little bit of pause on that is the play of Joshua Dobbs here down the stretch. He's been dynamic and came in and been awesome, and that is way outside the norms for Josh Dobbs for his career. So that makes you step back. Is it the system here in the Vikings that is doing real? I mean, the tape looks good, but he's throwing to Addison, Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson. The offensive pass blocking at the tackles is pretty good. Is it the system versus Kirk Cousins? That makes me do at least a little bit of pause on what the potential payments could be for Kirk Cousins in the offseason, also coming off an Achilles. I don't think it's totally necessarily, Scott, that it means Arthur Smith is back, though. A new coach coming in could want his guy. I mean, you talk about Bobby Slowick as a name that we've been talking a lot about, you and I. Offensive coordinator, first-year offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, been great, but he was the pass game coordinator for the 49ers for a long time. And, 49ers, Kirk Cousins came up in the Shanahan offense. He's still in a Shanahan disciple offense, McVay, Kevin O'Connell. So there could be some synergy there if you brought in a Bobby Slowick and Kirk Cousins was looking to play in the same system that he's been, quite frankly, awesome in. I know a lot of people think poor of him. Again, I just said, is it the system itself? Hard to say until you change a lot of the variables. But Kirk Cousins was playing awesome football this season, the last 2 years. And he's somebody that if he was available, you'd at least, I think, be interested in. You don't want to pay him incredible money out there. If that's okay, thank you. God bless you. But if you want to come in and throw to some first round picks and a division that is there for the taking, because the Vikings are looking to move on, their contracts are kind of weird, then certainly a possibility, something you should at least kick the tires on.
And then draft a quarterback in the second or third round that one of those guys falls, one of those developmental guys. If Jaden Daniels happens to slip down, Michael Penix Jr., if he slips down in the second round, use a second round pick and try and develop another guy. And now I've got Kirk Cousins as a bridge quarterback who can get me into the playoffs, Desmond Ridder, and another guy competing at 2-3. That's not a terrible option. It really isn't. On that note, guys, we're going to get out of here and we will dive further into this on Wednesday. We'll go short today, but we will get fully into Saints Week, the day before Thanksgiving. So appreciate everybody for being here. If you have any questions after the fact, please hit us up on the YouTube or Facebook pages. I love the interaction after the fact. I like the community in here with different opinions, back and forth. It's a respectful conversation, and that's what I love hearing. Nick, any last words before we get out of here? And we'll be back on Wednesday.
No last words. We'll see you guys again before the Thanksgiving holiday, but everyone out there, be safe. Don't drink and drive. Enjoy your time with your family and enjoy football. We only have one more week of regular season college football. Scott, man, how does the time fly? Most of the tape that we're going to analyze for these guys as prospects in the upcoming draft, it's already out there. So we're getting to the fun review part of football that I really love for the draft process, but should be a lot of fun. And hopefully the Falcons can catch some of this magic that my Iowa Hawkeyes and Denver Broncos have stumbled upon here, both of them being lights out and winning football games left and right as of late.
All right, Nick, you bounce. Go get us ready on Mile High Huddle. I want to answer John Harrell real quick, and then I will meet you back over there.
No, they can wait. We got all day. That's thoughts on Bo Nix.
We'll go long.
Yeah.
My thoughts on Bo Nix on this one. I don't trust him to use a high pick on him. I saw, who was it? Trevor Sikkema on PFF had him with a number 6 overall pick. Again, you never say never. Guys can prove you wrong all the time. But where I'm wrong the least is on guys that I don't think are good enough that end up not being good enough. Mm-hmm. Bo Nix doesn't make NFL throws. He plays in almost a gadgety type of offense where it's a lot of side to side, a lot of underneath. And you turn on an evaluation, you're like, okay, where do I see the throw he's going to need to make in the NFL? And I don't see them. He crumbled at Auburn when he came back with Oregon to play Georgia. Now, Georgia's made a lot of quarterbacks look bad, but he looked like the same panicky, can't get it done. And then he's had success out west in Oregon with a ton of space and a bunch of fast skill guys where they're out-talenting most of the players they play. I'm not in on Bo Nix. Not yet. Not that high anyway.
I will caution a tad is that because of the offense that he plays in, just because we haven't seen those NFL throws consistently doesn't mean he can't.
Right.
And the reason I bring up that caution is we had a lot of the same conversation, not you and I, but just in general, the NFL talking heads if I can lump myself in that category. Had the same conversation about Justin Herbert coming out. Oh, it's a lot of horizontal, quick game stuff. Where are the big throws? He looks talented, but he's not asked to do that at Oregon. Then
I
we
think
saw him at
Justin
the Senior
Herbert was
Bowl.
a Senior Bowl guy.
And then we saw him at the Senior Bowl.
And that's where it matters. So again,
that's
my
what I was
thoughts on
working
Bo
into.
Nix are not yet.
And that's exactly what I was working into. He's going to play some tough football games. I cannot wait for the Pac-12 championship, Washington, Oregon. I think Oregon's going to go in there and spank them, which hurts me because I'm pulling for the Dogs. But then we'll have a chance to see Bo Nix in either the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl, whichever one becomes the more popular bowl game going forward. Is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I would not be all the way out on Bo Nix. I think right now he could go anywhere from early third round to late first round. I haven't put him too much under the microscope. But good to see him playing well. Maybe it was just too much there, being on the team that his father was on, all the hype as a freshman. But Auburn just lost to New Mexico State. That team just does not.
Wasn't that what? But remember, Bo Nix is 29 years old, and they were decent when he got there and had Malik Willis, who they helped run off too. That's how long Bo Nix has been around. He ran off Malik Willis from Auburn, and if they had stuck with Malik Willis, they would have been in much better shape.
Probably. I guess my point is that Auburn seems to be, even back when he was there, seems to be a little bit stuck in mud.
They're regressing in a big way.
Yes, absolutely. With other teams in the SEC stepping up around them. So we will see. I would not be all the way out on Bo Nix, but I would not be all the way in on him either. You want to keep an eye out.
Again, he's one of those day two guys that I might bring in to compete with Desmond Ridder for if I were to go, you might have to do it anyway, because the guy might not be there in the first round, no matter what you do at quarterback. Yep. That you might need to use a second round pick on one of those guys. Anyway, Penix Jr., Bo Nix, somewhere in there. We'll see.
Jaden Daniels, Carson Beck. There's names, and we're going to figure it out and sort them and see what works. And right now we got to get through these games because we don't know where the Chargers are going to be picking. We don't know what offensive system they're going to be running yet. So a lot of questions there, but we'll have time to get through the quarterbacks, the edge rushers, the cornerbacks, defensive tackles.
The wide receiver.
It's a good class, but I don't know.
We got to go. Check us back on Wednesday, and we'll go for at least an hour leading into Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here. And if you want to continue the conversation, go to youtube.com/milehighhuddle. We're about to go talk Broncos, who are the hottest team in the NFL. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on Wednesday.